Okay, Rete, good evening everybody. Just going to do up another review lesson for you, going back over the things that we've been learning, and that will help you just to solidify what you've done. Now I'm working again from this is the New Testament Greek for Beginners by J. Gresham, Machen, and I did find the PDF, so I'll send that through to you on the Facebook in the messenger, and then you can download that. It's the entire book is 285, approximately maybe 290 pages. So you might want to think about getting it printed out, or even some of the first pages. It's going to take us quite a while to get through there, but you might want to get some of the pages actually printed out and then put into a book. What's especially useful with the PDF file, you'll see that when you get to the end, there's a lexicon there, so you can have a look through that. And that's from the Greek into English. It gives you the definitions, and then it even has the Greek, like a Greek, what would you call it? Like a lexicon, an English index on the back. And so if you want to know the Greek words, you can go to the English and the Greek. So of course it's probably easier to use your online software for that. And then if you come back further into the book, but again it's towards the end, they have these appendixes with a whole lot of charts. And I'm not saying you have to remember the charts or even know them at this point, but if you just have a look, it'll give you an idea of the way that these charts are structured to give you all the different forms of all the verbs, and then the forms of the nouns as well. But you can have a bit of an explore through that when you get some time. Okay, what I'll do though, I'll bring up the file we have at the moment. Okay, now I just want to go back into, this is lesson 3 of the book. Here's lesson 4. Let me just go back a little bit. I'm reading this on our Adobe Acrobat, the PDF reader, but I found that in another reader I had when I first opened up, sort of things went missing. So it might depend on the software as well, how it opens up. Okay, but this is lesson 3. Okay, now here's your forms, your verb forms, and you should be remembering these by now. And just to review, when you do review, you could do like an exercise, like say in your mind, luo, lues, lue, luomen, luete, luusi, and then change the verb. So you could say, and then blepo, blepes, blepe, blepomen, blepete, blepusi, or blepusin, remember? And then that's to see. And so just to get those words sort of flowing through, so when you do see the verbs and you see something with an omega at the end, you automatically know present active indicative. Lues, lue. Okay, and that's going to be very helpful because you're going to need to clearly spot in the example sentences where is the subject of the verb, and you need to recognize what's a verb and what's a noun. The subject's always going to be in the noun, of course, though sometimes you don't actually have the subject. Now, for example, you might have the word luo, and it's not going to say I was watching something, or it might have, like lue. Usually it occurs into the in the third person. You might have to say who the subject is. It could be the brother, so you would say, well, that brother would be ho adelphos, and lue, the brother was losing. But sometimes you don't have the noun there, you don't have the subject. You might just have lue, or whatever other verb it was. So then you just have to recognize that there is no subject written, but the subject is in the verb. Okay, and it's going to be a third person singular because the verb has the epsilon iota stem. Okay, so that's something else we need to be aware of and be thinking of now, is that when you're looking at a sentence, probably the first thing to help you out is find out where is the subject. Now, if you can't see the word as the subject, then you have to look at the verb, and the verb will point out to you, what the subject is by the ending of the verb. And so when you really look at it, the verb is actually made of 2 parts. You do have the stem, that's what's happening, in this case losing or loosing, and then you have the ending, which tells you it tells you which person is saying it. It's also going to tell you what the tense is as well and what the mood is, but also it's going to tell you who the person is. So your subject is actually tied in with that verb ending, like that. See, we have luo men here, which means we. So obviously that's telling you that the subject is here, and it's, the subject is we. But again, this is present active indicative. See, that's the present is the tense, the active voice. You have, with your voices, you have active voice, passive voice, and middle voice as well. Middle means that unlike the active voice where the subject is doing the action, and the passive, that's the subject receives the action, and the middle voice, it means that the subject is tied up with the action in some form, and he's going to, usually the results, he's going to have some kind of a relationship with the results that happen. And we use the middle voice, for example, in something like he fell over. I think if somebody falls over, nobody pushed him, he didn't mean to fall over, he had a place in that action. But yeah, there's all kinds of things, and things that you do for yourself, that would be a middle voice as well. Okay, so again, you just need to get used to those endings, or even if you want to remember, as you could say o, ace, a, for example. But you just quickly go o, ace, a, omen, ete, usen, or usi. And you can do that a few times, but somehow you need to be able to remember those endings and to be able to recognize them. Okay, so that's the first part of the exercise. There's remembering those verb stems. Now we get down to lesson 4. We'll get down to lesson 4 here. They gave you some new vocabulary, and then you get down to the declensions. Now this is the nouns. Okay, we're talking about cases here. What are the different cases? And as you see here, there's 5 cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative. So we'll just go through these again. I should let you know right now, the good news is that there'll be no homework with this, because you still have the homework set, but this should just help you through that. There's the translation part of your homework at exercise number 45. Okay, so these are the cases. Anthropos, and we're just doing these without the article. Remember the article, like ho, anthropos is the man, but here they're just saying a man. Okay, omicron sigma is the ending for the nominative singular case. So if you see omicron sigma like this, it's telling you that this is a singular case, and it's the nominative, he's the subject. If it's the plural, it's anthropoi. And you see omicron iota, and that's what changes. And you can see it through here, and what's changing is everything after the pi. So we recognize the stem for the word or man, anthropos. The stem is here where you see anthro and to the pi there. Okay, so the stems here, you have os, u, o. We just say o, we don't pronounce the iota subscript. On the lexicon that you have, what do we call that? The Bible software. I'll just go over to share this on you so you can see this. Okay, I think that's showing, yep. Okay, if you wrote a word, for example, and I'm just starting to get used to this thing myself, it's really quite nice. Well, we had the word anthropo, so anthro, I think you just sort of write in like that, anthropos, so pi, and then, how do they do this? That's right, okay, and that's the stem, and now we want to make it dative case, so you have to come over to here, and you need this one here, oh, there it is there. Okay, so this is the omega with the subscript, so that's appearing there on the screen, and that's the word anthropo. I think I got that right. Okay, so if you need your iota subscripts, and it's going to appear usually at the end of words. Most of the time, probably 90%, you're going to see it with the omega and the eta. Okay, so that would be this one. They don't have one without a top mark. Okay, but there's, oh, there it is here. Okay, that's the eta there. So these are the two most common ones with the iota subscript, and that iota subscript, and when it appears in the noun, when you see it like that, that's going to tell you that that's dative or locative or instrumental of means. That's the case. Okay, so that's where you see the iota subscript there. So when you do see that, to a man, it's talking about direction. Something is happening towards that person. Something's being given towards the person, or you're teaching the person. You could say like ho kurios, the Lord, and he was teaching didaskale. That's right, he was teaching didaskale. And where is he teaching? He's teaching to the man. So that would be anthropo, so to the man. And you'd see it like this. Teaching to the man, giving something to the man, walking even toward the man. They might say something different, but usually it just expresses direction like that. And then the accusative, that's the subject. Vocative, that's calling out somebody's name usually. It would be in the vocative. And then you go down to plural. I prefer to remember things going down. This is how I did it with Max. We'd go through the singular versions first, and then we'd go through the plural. So you might remember, just say anthropos, anthropou, anthropo, anthropon, anthropet, anthropoi, anthropone, anthropois, anthropous. If you do that 50 times, you might remember it. Or you can change it. So you'd be saying like angelos, angel, angelos, angelou, angelo, angelon, angele, angeloi, angelone, angelois, angelus. Okay, and if you just sort of remember those and the forms, might not make a lot of sense at this point, but you get that repetition in there, and you're like programming your computer to read the Greek. Okay, so there's that section there, and then this was the declension of a son. So this is just another example you could use. And here they say huios, huiu, huio, huion, huie, huioi, huion, or huion maybe, huiois, huios. Okay, and again, the only you have these little markings, and the only two really that I think is necessary for clear reading and understanding what you're reading is you have the rough breather at the top there, like on the iota. Ignore the other one you have over the omicron. That's just like a pronunciation type thing, and even over the upsilon here you have something else. I would just ignore those. You could learn them if you want, but it's not really going to become part of our studies. So the only two you need to remember is, again, the rough breather. That's like the H sound. And then you have the iota subscript, which would be the iota coming off the bottom of something like the dative, like the omega that you have there. Okay. And then that's the declension of doron. Oh, now this is a neuter noun. See, the endings finish slightly different. Okay, so some of them are similar, like the genitive case for the word doron is the same as what you'd have normally, and then the dative is similar. What happens is that the nominative changes. Now the nominative and the accusative in this is called the second declension, I think. Or maybe it's the first declension. Oh, this is the second declension. So what we just had before was the first declension when they're categorizing it. That's with the os ending to start off with. And here we have the second declension. And the nominative and the accusative are the same. It's just one of the eccentricities here. Okay, so you'd have to look at the context to tell you, is it the accusative or is it the nominative there? Okay, all right, and here it says here, it will be observed that doron is a neuter noun. In all neuter nouns of all declensions, the vocative and accusative of both numbers are like the nominative. So whether it's singular or plural, I like the vocative and accusative. And let me do this again. In all neuter nouns of all declensions, the vocative and accusative of both numbers are like the nominative. Sorry. and the nominative, vocative, and accusative plural always end in the short a. So it's dora, means a gift. Okay, but you can have a look through that. You've got the textbook now. I want to get us down to the exercise on 45, and I'll just explain how they form the sentences again, because you were getting a little bit confused about this. Okay, so first we're going to see if we can find the subject. This is number 1. And we see that we have the word here, adelphos, and it's very clear. This tells us that this is the noun. It's got omicron, sigma ending. Okay, so this is going to be a nominative singular, and there's no article. So that tells us that this is going to be a. Now what you do have to realize that sometimes the articles, even the articles in Greek, can be separate from the word, and you might have something in the middle. It could be an adjective, or it might be a verb or something else. So again, it's just something you have to be aware of, is that the article and the noun, it says, can be different, can be separate from each other with a word in the middle. But here, adelphos, we know that this is a brother. Now, what is the brother doing? See, here we have epsilon iota. This tells us that this is the third person, singular, masculine. So, blepe, he sees. But we don't say our brother, he sees, we just say our brother sees. And then here we have anthropon, and this tells you that the omicron noon, this will tell you that this is the singular accusative. Okay, that's the singular accusative, omicron noon here. So the man is being seen. I'll put it into the passive there, but this is the object of what the man is seeing. So a brother sees a man. You got that? So here is anthropon, it's just a man, but he's in the accusative case, so that means that he's the object of what we're seeing. So the man, a brother sees a man. I did this last time, but again, you need the repetition. So we'll just go through these up until, I had you go to start at number 10 for your homework, but I might do another couple here just to help out. The same thing here, doulos, it's a servant. We see the omicron sigma. Okay, so that tells us quite clearly this is the subject, a servant or a slave. And this is the same as we had in number 1. We have the verb epsilon iota on the end. Writes, he writes. So a slave, he writes, but we just translate that as a slave writes. Logus, if you go back to your chart, that's going to tell you that this is a accusative plural. So that would be words. Slave writes words. Apostoloi, omicron iota, that tells you this is the nominative plural. And then didaskusin, remember that's the verb form, and you have this third person plural. And that matches with these apostles. See, this is plural as well. And so we have a group, a plural number of apostles, so many apostles, could be even just 2 or 3, but let's just say apostles. And didaskusin, they are teaching, but we don't say they are, we just say teaching. And we know it's third person singular because of the ending here. So the apostles are teaching a man, and then you have the accusative there by itself. Okay, so apostles are teaching a man. Apostoloi, luisi doulos. Apostles are loosening or freeing. Normally, I think in this case we have to say free slaves. And here again the word doulos, slaves, that's in that's the third person plural. Doulos, lambane, dora, a servant or a slave. And in this case, lambane means he receives. He receives. It's confusing. Excuse me. Sometimes the word lambane can actually lambano. Maybe it doesn't matter, but the word can actually mean to receive or to take, which is quite opposite. So But again, the context would tell you usually which one it is. So in this case, a servant receives, lambane, a gift, sorry, dora is plural, that's correct. Actually, is that what we had there? Yeah, that's right, it's plural, okay. Lambanusen, kuioi, oikus. So here again we have to receive, and it's plural, third person plural, and that fits with here, this is plural. Okay, so these are the sons. The sons receive, what are they receiving? Houses, sorry. Okay, so oikus, and again this is plural. Dulus kai oikus lambanusen adelphoi. Now the sentences are going to get a little more complex here. And in this case you have dulus. Now that's in the accusative. That means that these are the people that are receiving the action. So you have to look around for the subject. Where's the subject? Well, you go through here, you know, there's the word and, you have houses there, that's also in the accusative, and lambanusen, that's the verb, third person plural. Now you don't find the subject until you get to the very end. Very important, you've always got to find the subject, and really you should find it first, and everything else should fall into place. So adelphoi, that's the brothers, as in the nominative case. So the brothers are doing something here. Well, they're receiving, and what are they receiving? They're receiving slaves. See, that's accusative, so they become the object of the action. Something is happening to them. They're not making the action happen, something is happening to them. In this case, they've been, you can say they've been delivered over to the brothers to receive. So again, you have the subject all the way at the end of the sentence here. Brothers receive servants or slaves and houses. Number 8, blepomen, we see. And what do we see? We see a temple. Hiera, kai apostolus, and we're there, and apostolus, which would mean apostles. And the apostles again was in the accusative, so these are the ones that are being seen. And you don't have a separate subject in this case. Again, so you'd have to look at the verb. You recognize omen, which means we. So this is telling you the subject is we. Okay, so that's, you know, just to help you through there. We got through to, what number are we up to here? I might as well continue, I guess. Let's just get to Lambanusen. We got on number 8. Okay, number 9. Sorry. So dulus blepete kai adelphus. So dulus, we now know this is accusative, so that's not the subject. Blepete, that's the now that's the second person plural of to see. Okay, so in this case, you see plural, and this is going to tell us where the subject is, because this is not the subject and the adelphus is not the subject, so we just have the subject wrapped up in the ending of the verb lepete. So in this case, you plural see, and they've split the sentence up here, you see, and so what are they seeing? They're seeing dulus, servants, kai adelphus, and brothers. So you see servants or slaves and brothers. Okay, it's a little bit complex there, because one, there's no subject, and two, with the verb, you've got the subject with the verb, but it's you know, it's not in the place where you would have a subject in the English. Now I think this is where you had to start with your homework. So number 10, graphes logon apostolo. This is the first example that we have where you see the dative case. You've got the omega with the iota below it. So graphes, and that becomes the third person, second person singular. That's you. Okay, so remember, like if it was if you're doing the forms in your head, you would say grapho, would be I write, graphes, you write, graphe, he writes. graphomen, we write. What do we want? Graphete, you, plural, write, and then graphusen would be they write. And then you just go through it again. Grapho, graphes, graphe, graphomen, graphete, graphusen. Okay, even for me, after all these years, it's still a little bit difficult. I haven't really done this for a long time, gone through these repetition type exercises, so hopefully it'll come back to me as well. But in this case, so now you're saying you, singular, graphes, you write. You have the subject there, and what's he writing? He's writing, what are you writing? You're writing a word, log on, or it could be a message. There are other words, just log on or logos usually just means a word. But so you write a word, and here you have, again, the omega with the iota subscript. The word is apostolos. They've taken off the ending after lambda and just put this on. So this tells us 2. And as a memory device, Max used to teach him, when you have the iota subscript, it's like a little pointing arrow off the bottom. He likes to have these memory devices, so it's almost like he's pointing, saying to. You go this way, to the man. So you write a letter or a word to the apostle, to an apostle. So to an apostle. I'll just give you one more here. Didaske anthropon. Just it's 2 words here, but the subject is going to be tied up with the verb. Didaske, that's he. Okay, epsilon iota is he, that's third person singular. What's he doing? He is teaching. Present tense. So you would say he is teaching a man. Okay, so he's the subject of the object of the direct object where he is teaching words, for example. If you see it like didaske, you can say to biblion, I guess that would be the Bible. Anthropon, he is teaching. And in this case, it just says he is teaching a man. In this case, okay, we don't have it. He's teaching to a man in this case. So, here is the subject. He is teaching a man. I guess you could almost say he's teaching about a man as well, possibly. But that's how it is. Let's do one more because we need the dative example. So adelphos, very clearly, this is the subject. A brother, lege. Remember, from lego is the main noun, to speak. Lego, lege, leges, legomen, legete, leusen. It's all starting to come back to me now. So he speaks. He is speaking. Logon, this is the accusative. So what's he speaking? He's speaking a word. And now we can see it here, to. He's speaking a word to an apostle. Okay. So it still gives you a few more to do for your homework. I just thought you needed that because, again, with the answers that are coming back, it seems you're still having difficulties working out the subject. If you find the subject, then everything else should fall into place a lot easier for you. Okay, so hopefully you've found time to have a look through this. And then you can go back with that last slide. This was for your Greek 05 homework. You also had, you had to translate these phrases into English. And then I had you also on, just to remind you what you had to do. It was, exercise 31. That's where you had to say those words like nominative singular, anthropos, genitive singular. You just had to tell me those. And I believe exercise 41. Was it? There was something else you had to do. Okay, but you've got it there on the other exercise you had to do. It was 31. I thought there was something else. Okay. Anyway, you can check that out, and your homework should be into me by the weekend if you can. It only gives you a couple of days. If you're going to be a little bit late, just try not to be too late. Okay, and we'll see you on Sunday for your next class.